Russia is committed to continuing its gas supplies to Europe while Ukraine is making the extension of transit agreements impossible. That's according to Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico after meeting with Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Sunday.
My meeting today was a response to Ukrainian President Zelensky, who, answering my personal question on Thursday, said that he was against any transit of gas through Ukraine to our territory. The Ukrainian president is also in favor of sanctions against Russia's nuclear program. Such attitudes financially harm Slovakia and threaten the electricity production in nuclear power plants in Slovakia, which is unacceptable. Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed the readiness to continue supplying gas to the West and Slovakia, which is virtually impossible due to the position of the Ukrainian president after January 1st, 2025.
It's huge. I mean, he's only the third leader from the West that has met Vladimir Putin since the beginning of the special military operation. And really, he has been a long time a critic of Brussels' policy of supplying weapons to Kiev in that war in Ukraine. He said over and over, and this was during his campaign for election back in 2023, that he didn't want Slovakia to participate in that. And as a result of that long-held view of let's not just keep supplying military weapons to Ukraine, that is not helping the situation, he actually found himself targeted by an assassin who attempted to kill him for that stance. He took 3 bullets, was in a critical situation, went through life-intensive surgery, and of course survived from that. And now he's come to Moscow saying that he wants to normalize these relations essentially with the country. Now, there was another reason why he came to meet with Vladimir Putin, and this is, as you mentioned there, this is about this energy deal. So 5 years ago, there was an energy deal signed for Slovakia to get its gas from Russia transiting through Ukraine. That deal is about to expire, and Ukraine has said, no, we are not going to renew it. We understand that you heavily rely on Russian gas. It's cheaper, it's convenient, but no, we're not going to keep allowing those supplies to come through our country. So he came here to see if there was any way of finding a solution. We don't know if there can be a solution because obviously Ukraine has said no to this, but we do know that Vladimir Putin recently talked about that decision by Kiev at his recent question and answer session.
Ukraine has cut off our gas supplies to European consumers. On the one hand, it begs from their hands, because only with the support of the West, including from Europe, can it exist. Not only to fight, but to exist. And at the same time, it creates problems for them by cutting off the supply of our relatively cheap gas to Europe. There will be no such contract. Everything is already clear. Well then, all right, we will survive, and Gazprom will survive this.
Well, there was also another reason that prompted this visit, and this is down to Zelensky himself. Robert Fico saying that Zelensky attempted to bribe Slovakia for its support for wanting to join NATO, and that really riled Fico up.
Zelensky returned to the topic of gas and asked me if I would vote in favor of Ukraine's membership in NATO if he gave me $500 million from Russian assets. I, of course, answered, never. You know my opinion on Ukraine's membership in NATO, and it's strange that he asked me such a question.
I mean, that is an incredible accusation. Ukraine is a country long known for having high levels of corruption. And here we have Vladimir Zelensky, who is no longer the elected leader of the country, essentially acting as some mafia boss and saying, hey, you know what, we'll give you assets if you give us support for this. I mean, talk about buying support. If that's not corruption, I don't know what is.
Fico is the third Western leader to visit Russia, Putin in Moscow since the start of the special military operation. Talk to us about the reaction.
Well, we've not had any specific reaction from Brussels yet, but you can imagine that they are not happy by the fact that yet another EU leader has come to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin. We did, though, hear from the Deputy Foreign Minister from Poland, who's essentially said, well, you know, this lines up well exactly what we knew about Slovakia and Hungary and their position, their stance towards Russia. And he then went on to say, look, you know, Slovakia's just got to find another gas supplier. Well, that's fairly easy to say when the gas supplies run out in January, which is the one of the coldest months in Slovakia. So it's interesting to get reaction like that. We did also hear from the Finnish Prime Minister, who was meeting with some EU leaders, including the leaders from Italy on Sunday. And his point of view was that Russia continues to be dangerous, and it's permanently dangerous towards Europe. However, in Slovakia, where obviously Robert Fico has had a huge amount of support for his policies of not supplying Ukraine with military aid and wanting to normalise relations with Russia, things have been much more receptive.
Zelensky could not have received a more proper slap for his arrogance. Prime Minister Robert Fico showed the whole world that no one will mop the floor with Slovakia. We refuse to be vassals of the West. We refuse to jump when Brussels whistles. We refuse hatred towards Russians. We refuse war. And Robert Fico showed the whole world that Slovakia is a self-confident and wise nation that is not afraid to go its own way.
Slovakia going its own way, and that's exactly what Robert Fico has planned. He's in that bandwagon with Viktor Orban, who really believe that the EU needs to just grow a pair and start talking to Russia once more. And of course, unconfirmed reports that we may see Robert Fico back in Moscow next year. This is for a World War II commemoration event.